Hello, everybody. Welcome to the AI series. My name is Nabil Bukhari, and I'm the Chief Technology Officer and the Chief Product Officer for Extreme. And I also am the General Manager of our subscription business. Lots of different hats, but today I'm going to stick to my technology hat. And joining me is Markus Nispel. Markus, go ahead and introduce yourself.
Hello, everybody. I'm Markus Nispel, Head of AI Engineering at Extreme Networks.
And also the CTO for our EMEA region,
That's true.
which is a very important part of your job, Markus.
Yes.
All right. So AI series. What are we going to talk about in the AI series?
We're going to talk about AI, all things AI, use cases, technology, what's happening, and specifically what is happening with AI within Platform One.
Absolutely. I think the focus really is Platform One. If you've already heard about Platform One, that's great. If you haven't, then why haven't you heard about it? Because it's all over the place. People are talking about it, and we are leading up to our Connect conference, which is our user conference in Paris this May of 25. And it's going to be super exciting. We'll be showcasing a lot of various capabilities in Platform One, as well as announcing the GA date for it. But back to the series here. So in preparation for that User Connect, we got to talk about all of this AI stuff that is built into the platform. Markus, as you talked about, this is about all things AI. And we wanted to do this series because AI moves so fast. By the time I finish this sentence, there's probably going to be something new that'll come out on AI. And we thought it would be good to kind of talk about AI outside of the context of the product itself, so that we can keep pace with the changes that are happening and really keep our viewers up to speed on what is our latest thinking when it comes to AI.
Yeah, absolutely. And architecture is really important. As you said, AI is moving at an unprecedented speed. So you need to build an infrastructure and architecture that can keep pace. And that's what we have done here.
Absolutely. So let's start, but let's not start with architecture. Let's start with perhaps a mental model on how our viewers should really think about AI, especially in the context of Platform One. This is how I think about it. Now, you tell me how you think about it, and together we'll come up with this mental model. So at the core of everything related to AI is the AI core. Now, AI core is part of Platform One, and AI core is where all the cool things happen. When you think about LLMs and RAGs and data governance and data transformation and ML services and all that kind of cool stuff that you read about, on your morning LinkedIn feed, that's all part of the AI core. AI core has all of the capabilities, and AI core is part of the platform. Now, what happens when you, as a user, get onto Platform One and you want to use AI? Right? You're like, hey, AI is really cool. I really want to do something with AI. You have different ways in which you can interact with that AI core, different ways you can experience AI, different ways you can access AI, whatever word you want to use. But the ways in which you use AI, there are really three major ones in Platform One. So Markus, which is the first one?
Yeah, absolutely. So the usual start is you have a conversation. So the conversational interaction pattern is critically important to get started and also to build trust, which is also another key component that we have in mind as we design the user experience and the interaction patterns for our customers.
Essentially a ChatGPT style of thing.
A ChatGPT style conversation to start from.
Yeah, because that's what people got used to. They're like, hey, I'm going to open up my ChatGPT and I'm going to have a conversation with it. So that interface is available in Platform One. Obviously, it's a conversational interface. In the Platform One, we call it Extreme AI Expert, right? So that's a conversational interface. Okay, I can talk to the AI core. What else can I do with it? What's the second experience?
The second one, if you think about it, as we have network, security, business coming into play as well, there's a lot of data, and visualizing data, creating insights with the data, just using a conversational interface is really challenging. So we introduced a multimodal and interactive model that we call AI Canvas within Extreme Platform.
Okay, multimodal, like, we're starting on the big technical terms here. So what is multimodal?
Multimodal is beyond a conversational interface. So you're not only talking to it, but you can build graphs, reports, charts. dashboards.
Okay, and you can do it interactively. So that
Correct.
is the AI Canvas part in Platform One. So that's the interactive mode, collaborative mode. You can generate graphs and pretty lights and reports and all that kind of stuff. So that's the second way you can interact with AI. And the third way, which is obviously my favorite way of interacting with AI, is the agentic way.
Yep. I think it's our both favorite because this is where the industry, where the market is going. Agents and autonomous really means you need to still interact with the system. You need to express your intent, and then the system goes off and completes an entire journey or part of a journey autonomously. And how you interact with the system as part of that interaction pattern, this is covered in our autonomous interaction pattern.
Okay, so 3 different ways to really interact with AI in Platform One. Number one, you can talk to it using a conversational interface, which is Extreme AI Expert. You can generate graphs and reports or multimodal stuff with it, and that is through AI Canvas. And that's the second interface. And the third one is just you literally tell it what to do, and it'll do it on behalf of you autonomously through the use of agents.
Correct.
So now coming back to the mental model, it sounds a lot like cars to me. And, you know, I love cars. I love car analogies. So at the center of the car is the engine and its infotainment system. And that's really the car. That's equivalent to the AI core. It is built into the car. It is the car. It has the main capabilities of the car, the engine, the speed, the acceleration, as well as the navigation and all that cool stuff, music and all that kind of stuff.
And it has access to everything in the car.
And
all data, status, whatever it is.
It has access to everything. So that's a good example or analogy for an AI core. And then you as a user, you can sit into the car and you can drive it the good old way using the steering wheel, kind of like conversational interface. Or you can use a newer interface. You can actually click the button and talk to your car. Yeah, these days you can talk to your car, so that's another interface. Or when you sit in these fancy like Waymo or something else, you just sit in there and you just tell it where to go, and it actually gets there on your behalf. So I think that's the mental model that we should keep in mind as we go through this series and talk about various components of AI. There's AI core that has all the capabilities of the AI. It is part of the platform. It is not something different. It is available in the platform and to every application or every user that is on that platform. And there's 3 ways to interact with it: conversational, interactive, collaborative, multimodal, or agentic. Markus, I think this is a good place to stop this episode, and then we'll pick it back up in the next one. All right, welcome back. AI series, where we'll talk about all things AI related to Platform One. Because if you try to talk about AI outside of the context of Platform One, it could get really messy. But before we get started, I want to introduce you to MJ. MJ, introduce yourself.
Hey folks, I'm Michael Jones. I go by MJ. I'm a VP here in the office of the CTO and really stoked to be here to talk about agents. But first, Nabil, tell me, what do you think? How do you think of an agent?
Great, right into it. All right. Look, agents are the thing that everybody is talking about. Just like 2 years ago, everybody was talking about ChatGPT, but now it seems everything has moved on to agents. Before we dive deep into the tech of it, this is how I think about agents. And I think for us mere mortals, this is a good way to think about agents. Agents are like job descriptions. Right? So when we decide that, hey, we want something to be done, we describe that job, we give permissions to that job, we give tools or resources to that job, and there's a success criteria for that job. And then we say like, okay, now we hire somebody to do that job, and we say like, okay, now go and do it. There is, from a mental model point of view, I don't think there's any need to change that mental model. That is exactly how agents work and behave for you as a user. So attach agents to jobs to be done. An agent does something for you. And now, how does it figure out what is it that needs to be done? How does it do it? And so on and so forth. For that, MJ, I'll come to you.
Yeah.
So I have gotten an AI agent in Platform One, and I'm telling it to do something. Now, how does it do it?
That's a great question. And I really love how you think about agents literally as an extension of our workforce, something that you literally can give a job description to. And, you can really map that to agents technically. I mean, technically, they're a probabilistic system that ultimately accomplishes a job to be done. And they are composed of a number of technologies, something that near and dear to my heart, LLMs. You talked about that earlier with chatbots and all the power of the LLM. However, agents are much more than an LLM. They're grounded in knowledge about your business, both real-time data as well as documented knowledge of how things are done. And then finally, to really help these agents really drive value and accomplish those jobs to be done, it's all about the tooling. Agents have access to very powerful and specific tools that they can then leverage with their knowledge to ultimately accomplish these objectives that you give it.
So let me try and summarize this because I want to see if I got what you're saying. So what you're saying is that agents, especially in Platform One, they have context because they know what they're doing in the context of Platform One. They have access to data because they have access to the data in Platform One. And they have access to other agents and other tools to be able to do things. Did I get that right?
Yes. Agents, tools, and data. And, ultimately, I would say, Nabil, you think about how powerful that is. Right. Some people have some concern when we give that much power to these agents. And so I'm here to say, you can rest at ease there, sir. Because ultimately, as we've architected this inside of AI Core and on Platform One, we essentially control the agents, or we give you the ability to control the agents and be comfortable with them with 3 levers. The first is that deployment scope. How broad it is. Is this a global network it's operating over, or is this just one campus, or perhaps one level in there? The action scope, or the tools, the things it can leverage and use to go file tickets if there's a bug, to go sniff additional data, to collect evidence, etc. So that's the tooling. And then finally, the most important is what we call human in the loop. Human in the loop is when the agent will literally reach out to you and say, Nabil, shall I continue to go down and make this change? Or Nabil, can you give me some more context on this so I can better problem solve it? So through deployment scope, action scope, and human in the loop, we ultimately keep our customers in charge of all these agents.
MJ, I'm glad that you talked about that because that's really the agency of the agent. Agents have agency, right?
I see what you did there.
No, I think the industry did it. I'm just copying the word. So the agency for the agent is really important in Platform One for all of our users because every single one of our users is going to be at a different place in terms of their trust, in terms of their maturity level, or quite frankly, their controls that they have within the company, right? Some of the regulated industries, we sell a lot into that. They might not be willing to give it as much agency as perhaps, a different industry. So just like in the usual way we at Extreme do it, we hand the control to you, our customers. So you get to decide what is the agency of that agent that is present in Platform One. And MJ, as you talked about it, so let's just repeat it one more time because this is so important. So there are 3 levers through which you can define the agency of the agent. What's the first one?
The first one we call the deployment scope.
Okay, which means what part of your network the agent can actually do something.
Absolutely.
I'm going to use simple language on this, right? So you can decide that, hey, actually, I'm going to ask you, can I do this? I say like, hey, this is my headquarters. I'm really finicky about it. And I don't really want agents to touch anything in my headquarters. But all of these, my small branches and stuff, I really want to start, having the agent do all of those branches. Can I do that?
Absolutely. It is architected from the ground up to handle use cases just like that.
So perfect. So where can an agent work? That's number 1. What's number 2?
The action scope.
Okay.
Think of the action scope as the tools or the capabilities that it has.
Right. Okay. So first is where it can do something. The second is what can it do?
Yes.
Now, I want you to dive a little bit deeper on this because when it comes to the action scope, I want you to talk about who is starting the agent. Because let me give you an example. So if I start an agent versus, let's say, MJ, if you start an agent, would that agent have the same action scope?
No, it will not, because the agent inherits that action scope from the user it is working on behalf of. So ultimately, when I log into Extreme Platform One and when you log into Extreme Platform One, we have different access and different tools. Therefore, the agents that we create that are working on our behalf will mirror the same access that we as individuals have.
So that is a really important concept. So that's another way in which you can define what an agent can do. And then the last one is really what I call as oversight.
This is a huge industry term. We call it human in the loop, and I believe that's just scratching the surface. We've got so much research in this area, and it's so nuanced. We simply don't have the time to talk about it at this time. However, it's ultimately keeping the human in control, the human in the helm, keeping you in the loop, making sure that you approve or not approve certain actions, making sure that you can provide some validation that something was done correctly, or perhaps provide additional context or nuance that the agent needs to complete the task. So human in the loop is one of the most important concepts in controlling the level of agency that our agents have at Extreme Platform One.
Absolutely. And then in Platform One by default, the agent always brings a human in the loop before taking any action. Now, of course, as a user, once you get comfortable with it, once you have the trust around it, you can remove that human in the loop. But by default, there is a human in the loop, which means a permission by an actual human user before any action is done on the network. So, MJ, we talked about how to think about agents. What are the technical components of an agent? And most importantly, what is the agency of an agent and how we at Extreme are putting the control in your hand, because in the end, AI is only going to be as useful as is your trust in that AI.
Absolutely.
I think this is a good place to take a break. And then next time we can dive a little bit deeper.
Sounds great, Nabil. Catch you on the next episode.
Okay, welcome back to AI series, where we are talking about all things AI as they relate to Platform One and a little bit of the industry as well. Talking about industry, MJ, there is one word which is confusing everybody in the industry, and I think industry is not doing a great job in describing that, and that is also happens to be my favorite word in AI, agents. So when I read about agents out there in industry, it's talked about in the agentic AI way, which is, as I like to call it, behind the curtain. Yeah. This is how the sausage is made and all those different agents. But then recently, these agents are exposed to the customers as well, like think about Agent Force and a couple of other ones. So I have a few questions for you. One is there a difference between the agentic AI agents behind the scene and the agent that is exposed to the customer? Number one. And the second thing is, MJ, are we going to go into the world of there's an agent for it, and then there's going to be an agent fatigue out there? So I have two questions for you.
Oh, those are good questions. And I will say agent fatigue is real. And our user research team has been on that since day one. And so we've architected this in a very simple way. Like you said, there's a lot of agents, but our users are only going to have to worry about just a few agents, and we call these our lead agents. So our lead agents are the agents that you will interact with on a day-to-day basis. Now, those lead agents are backed up by a large team of what we call core agents. When you think about our networking security space, it's highly specialized. So in order to deliver these outcomes for our individuals, we needed to architect something that was easy to use, thus a single lead agent you can interoperate with, but extensible and flexible, meaning it has a large number of core agents that are hyper specialized behind the scenes underneath it, powering that experience.
All right, so that's great. So that means as technology grows and moves fast, there'll be more and more core agents behind the scene, but our customers will only interact with the lead agents, therefore saving them from this agent fatigue, and there is an agent for it syndrome, which, by the way, is where we started with Platform One to get away from that thing so that everything is consolidated in one. All right, so that's great, but let's make it a little bit more concrete. Give me an example of a lead agent, something that you are going to stand up and introduce at our user conference in May in Paris.
Well, my favorite agent is what we call service agent. Face it, service is the backbone of every industry, and service in the network and the security space is incredibly complex, and mission critical and time sensitive. So with our service agent, that is the single lead agent you can ask any service related question of, and it has a team of core agents underneath it. So to make this concrete, let's say you're having problems getting on the network. You go to our lead agent and you say, I'm having network authentication issues. Please help me solve this. What that agent actually does is it has a team of agents underneath it. The first is our evidence collection agent. I mean, think about it, how back in the day, network admins had to go to different systems, find different logs, pull those logs and study those logs to help understand what's going on. Our evidence collection agent does that instantaneously. Another thing that frequently had to do is log into some ticketing system, copy and paste all your evidence, and open a case. This is our case creation core agent. Again, it is behind the lead agent. We dramatically simplified and reimagined the service experience, and now you work directly with that single lead agent who has a whole team of core agents under the hood working on your behalf.
That is fantastic. And then, of course, that service agent in the back end interfaces with our groundbreaking, award-winning, everybody loves it, service team, GTAC team behind the scenes. So it's really that collaboration between the service AI agent as well as our human-based GTAC team behind the scene. But you said something here that I want to make sure that we confirm to our users out there. You said some of these capabilities like evidence collection and creation of the tickets and stuff, this is based on the core agent. So that means that as we continue to introduce more and more core agents, the lead agent, the service agent becomes smarter and can do more and more and more things over time. Did I get that right?
You nailed it, absolutely. Over time, these agents' capabilities are just going to grow as people become more trustworthy and provide them more agency. These agents will take over and be able to do more and more inside of your business.
Yeah. So essentially, these lead agents in Platform One, they really become part of your team. They're there, you get used to them, and they get smarter and more capable as the time goes on, so you don't have to deal with all of the hundreds and thousands of core agents behind the scene. This is fantastic. And I think this is a core differentiation for us, because otherwise there are going to be so many agents and you would not know them and you would not use them. It would be like your cell phone where you have 20,000 different applications and you use 3 of them on a daily basis. So I think this is a fantastic innovation in Platform One. But let's just dive a little bit deeper, because you talked about the concept that a lead AI agent can auto-magically create teams behind the scene. And in those teams, it can pull in other core agents, it can pull tools, and actually data connectors as well. Yeah. So tell me a little bit about that. How did we make that possible?
Yeah, this kind of comes back to one of our core design principles for Extreme Platform One, which is extensibility. We realize the AI is a very nascent space. We're seeing consensus developing around certain standards and concepts. And so we wanted to be ready for the adoption of this space as it continues to grow. Not only the adoption, we're helping drive this space. And so one of the challenges we saw is what you described. There's just so much individual tooling required in this space. So how do you manage which tools which agents get? You know, there are gonna be new tools that we haven't invented yet that we need to be able to provide our agents access to, help them understand how to use it. So for that, we actually have a patented approach we call the Smart Tool Registry, where we can essentially register tools, new tools, into our system and instantly assign them to different agents. Agents can now leverage these new tools to drive better outcomes for you and a business. So extensibility is core to our platform. To manage that, we've invented things such as our Smart Tool Registry to manage the complexity of tooling for agents in the network and security space.
And this is fantastic. This just means that you as a user do not have to worry about what are the latest features in Platform One, and you have to learn them and know about them before you can use them, because your lead agent knows about it, and it will use them the moment they are made available. And as MJ, you pointed out, there's a lot of IP and patents that we have around this. But look, in the industry, there are a couple of techs that are starting, or a couple of projects that are starting to gain recognition around it. There's MCP,
absolutely,
right, which is Anthropic is doing that, and there's A2A, which is Google that is doing that. So tell us about that, in future, as these things kind of build consensus around that, will we support them?
Yes, absolutely. And it's great. I mean, wow, you're so on it, Nabil, following MCP by Anthropic, the Model
I
Context
asked
Protocol.
AI about it.
Google's A2A. What a lot of this consensus we're seeing is around interoperability.
Yeah.
Either how do agents operate with external tool sets, or how do agents work with external agents? That'd be the A2A versus the MCP. And so back to our smart tool registry, we're able to capture the value from these new standards inside of our smart tool registry, leverage these new design patterns, ultimately enabling our agents to interoperate with external tooling or external agents.
Yeah.
With just a few entries in our smart tool registry.
Absolutely. So look, summarizing the agentic world, as we like to call it, agents, they do things for you on behalf of you. They are present in Platform One. They're lead agents that you get to know them. They become part of your team. And the lead agents get smarter over time as we introduce more and more core agents, data connectors, and tools in Platform One. You don't have to worry about them. The lead agents do that. Now, you also don't have to worry about lead agents going cuckoo and doing silly stuff on your network because you control them through defining their agency.
Yes.
And what are the three ways in which I define the agency for these lead agents?
Through the deployment scope, the action scope, and the good old human in the loop.
Exactly. So there it is. Platform One not only brings the conversational interface and the multimodal interface, but this is perhaps the most advanced interpretation and development of agentic AI when it comes to networking and security. And we cannot wait for you to get your hands on it and start using it because MJ, we can think of 18,000 different ways to use it, but our users will find another 18 million ways to do it. With that, we'll see you again soon. All right, welcome back to the AI series where we talk about all things AI related to Platform One. Markus, welcome back. We missed you here. MJ did a good job, but it's good to have you back.
Yeah, good to be back.
So when you were here last, we talked about the mental model, right? We talked about the AI core being kind of that engine of the car and that infotainment system of the car that has all of the capabilities built into it. And then the user interfaces that or experiences that in different ways. So with MJ, we talked about agents quite a bit, and that was really fun. But now let's come back to the AI core, where all of the fun and the great and the amazing stuff really, truly happens. So we're going to take it a little slow. Let's start building the picture of AI core before we start jumping into it. So I'll start. I'll make a couple of statements. Correct me if I'm wrong on this. So AI core is common to the entire platform.
Absolutely.
Which means that unlike most of the products out there, or unlike most of the interpretation of AI out there, we think about platforms and not products when we think about AI. In Platform One, AI core is available to anything and everything that is running on top of platform. So whether you're using it for management of your network, whether you're using it for security services, whether you're using for analytics, and I won't go into the roadmap too much, but whatever you're using it for, all the capabilities of the AI core are available to all of these upper level services, which is a unique distinguishing factor for Platform One compared to some of the other offerings out there in the industry.
And actually, that's the definition of a platform. So it becomes available to all users and all entities, all agents within the platform. So you have seamless scale.
Exactly. And I remember a long time ago, 2 years ago, somebody asked me on an interview and they said, like, where do you see the future of AI? And I remember saying it that the true unlocking of AI potential will only happen when AI is married to a platform worthy of that AI.
Absolutely. Those two need to come together.
Exactly. And that's really what Platform One is. Okay. AI core.
Yep.
So Markus, what are the key layers of AI core?
The key layers. I think early on you mentioned the infotainment system, and I mentioned in the first episode that access to everything, to all data is important. So the first layer is the obvious layer. It's our data hub. So how we process, ingest, process, and manipulate data. That's the first layer. And then all of the services layer sits on top of it. And all of those services then get orchestrated within AI Core. So we have 3 layers: data or data hub, services or AI services, and then the orchestration layer sitting on top.
That's a good way to think about it. 3 layers. So let's start with data, because most of the AI revolution that we think about or people talk about is really a data revolution. And I know I'm not supposed to say that on camera, but I'm going to say it anyways, because if your data is shit, actually, wait, I was supposed to say garbage.
Yeah.
If your data is garbage, then your AI is just going to produce faster garbage, or scarier, it's going to produce autonomous garbage. And you don't want that. So for any AI platform to really be useful to the customers or to the users, we really need to start from the data layer. And that is exactly where we started when it comes to Platform One. So Markus, let's dive into this data layer. So what are some of the things that data layer does?
Yeah, absolutely. And data is, again, a very universal term. So you need to think about what types of data you are processing. And if we look at Platform One, it's really a diverse set of data. It's our entire network, portfolio, switching, routing, wireless, every network entity, ours and other vendors' entities report into the infrastructure, but it goes beyond it. It's enterprise knowledge in form of documentation, troubleshooting, manuals, release notes, best practice guides, but also other enterprise knowledge like GTech knowledge bases, contracts, subscription, whatever it is. So it's a diverse set of structured and unstructured data that needs to come together.
And that's a really critical point, because in Platform One, it is not just about the data coming from Wi-Fi or switches or SD-WAN or what have you. It is about all that enterprise data. So
Absolutely.
Your contracts and your service lengths and your subscription counts, and then also on top, and this is still within the extreme domain.
Yeah.
Then it goes outside of the extreme domain, and that is where the ecosystem play comes in. And we have multiple different data connectors for other ecosystems and other devices. Now, we have already talked about one very publicly, so I think we can talk about that.
Absolutely.
Which is getting the data from all of the Intel NICs out there in collaboration. Big shout out to our friend Eric at Intel, who has been working with us to make that happen. So data. So the first thing, lots of data, different kinds of data, structured, unstructured, operational, enterprise, from within Extreme and outside of Extreme.
Yeah.
Okay, so we have taken all of this data and we have this very proficient and efficient way to ingest all of this data. What happens next?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think just to double click on that, I always say that data diversity is the most important thing. Everybody is talking about volume, yes. But it's really diversity, because AI is going to shine as you bring in diverse data sets together and expose it to AI.
Yeah.
But as we ingest it, the first step is the data pipeline. So how we make sure that data is properly transformed. Quality control is really, really important. As you mentioned before, garbage in, garbage out. So that is critically important. But then we also enrich the data. We add metadata to it and catalog it. So that's the data pipeline step.
So I want you to dig a little bit deeper into that, because we talked about the difference between running an AI in an application that is siloed, and therefore its data is siloed as well, versus running an application on top of a platform where the data is all part of the platform.
Yes.
Because recently somebody asked me, what is the difference of running various applications on top of a platform versus various applications in a suite of applications exchanging data between themselves? And this is the answer that I gave them. And you tell me if that is true, and if it is, how we have taken care of that in Platform One. When there are multiple applications which is exchanging data with themselves, and it could be through use of APIs or very different interfaces, it is equivalent to copy pasting.
Yeah.
So you can copy data from one place to another place, but what is lost is typically fidelity and context. Now, how do we take care of that within the pipeline, because you talked about metadata and cataloging, that the context of the data and the fidelity of the data stays constant and consistent no matter which upper level agent or upper level application is really accessing it. So talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, absolutely. As the result of the pipeline is cleaned, enriched data that is available to all applications and all agents, what we also need to make sure is that we apply policy and governance to that data set that is common and consistent across the board. Because as you bring in data from different sources with different access controls in place, you need to make sure that you maintain that throughout the entire pipeline. So we have a very strict and comprehensive governance and policy system in place where access control, role-based access control applies to every user, but also every agent and every application accessing the data, so it stays consistent.
And that's really important because in the agent conversation, we talked about the agency of the agent. And one of the things that we mentioned there was that depending upon who instantiates that agent actually inherits the access control of that user. For example, if I am running the same agent, it would have different access compared to if you were running the same agent. And that access control is really tied to this governance down here with the data. So what you're saying is that all of this data that goes through our pipeline has its own access control policies as well as governance. And we maintain that consistently all the way from the data layer all the way up to the agency of the agent that we talked about earlier.
Absolutely, we have to. We have to do that consistently. We're also logging and auditing the access from wherever it comes from. And that's required just for compliance reasons as well. As you know, we have different regulatory domains across the world. So we need to be in compliance with those requirements in those different domains. And the infrastructure, AI core, and the data hub does guarantee that.
You use one of the scary words, which is regulation. And we have users and customers all around the world, and we take care of the data governance, and we take this regulation that are relevant to you very seriously. We did that in the extreme cloud world as well, and we are not changing that in the platform one world. So in that data layer, we have the capacity and the capability to cater to the regulations that are applied or applicable to you in your region. And this is a core differentiation.
Absolutely.
And by the way, this is impossible to do when you're copy pasting data between various different applications and you don't really have a unified, consistent data architecture to underpin your platform.
You lose all of that context and the data, metadata that comes along with it. So that's critically important. And those concepts in general are pretty well understood in the industry, but an actual implementation doesn't really exist. So what we had to do, we had to build a lot of that by ourselves based on those industry principles and concepts. And that is also a key differentiation for us. We have built that infrastructure from the ground up. So we have everything under control.
That's something that I wanted to touch upon, because a lot of these concepts are talked about in the consumer world or in the AI that is either built for the consumer or is directly derived from the consumer side. And they talk about that, but the implementation is very different. Right? And this is where we had to build a lot of this technology in-house, because what we found was that what was available in the market was probably good enough for the consumer side, but we definitely did not feel that it was good enough for the enterprise side. So summarizing this, we talked about the 3 layers of AI core. There's data, there's services, and orchestration. And in data, we essentially talked about 3 different sections of it, if you would. We talked about data, different data sets coming from different data sources, the ecosystem play, and all of this getting ingested into our data hub. So that was the first one. Second one, we talked about pipeline. Let's summarize it quickly.
Pipeline includes all of the quality controls, data quality checks, the transformation, the data, metadata enrichment, and the cataloging of data. So agents and applications and any platform user can actually discover what data is available on their fingertips, so to speak, to do something meaningful with it.
And the last one we talked about is the governance of this data and making sure that those access policies and that control and governance flows all the way from the data layer all the way up to the agents, because I can't finish a sentence without talking about agents.
Absolutely.
So I have to bring that in. But we are going to stop this episode here because we talked quite a bit about data. And when we come back, we'll tackle the other 2 layers. We'll be back. Welcome back. We are talking about all things AI related to Platform One, and we were deep inside our AI core. We talked about the data layer. The most important thing about data is garbage in, garbage out. The AI revolution really is a data revolution. But having said that, there's a lot of cool and exciting things when it comes to models and stuff. So we're going to talk about the services layer. So this is the second layer, which is in part of AI core. So Markus, what are the big things that the services layer does?
Yeah, again, we will go with 3 as we do within the core, so it's easier to remember. So the first one is really centered around model serving, model training, model inference, a critically important point, obviously, as we think about AI. The second layer within the services layer is centered around your favorite topic, agents. Agent lifecycle management, how do you provide a runtime environment, how do you upgrade them, version them, and as well as how you facilitate communication between agents. And the third, last but not least one, is something that you and MJ talked about before, tools registries, super important. How do you manage tools? How do you make tools available to agents and other services within the platform? Those are the 3 key components.
Okay, so models, agents, and tools. All right, let's start with models. So Markus, everybody wants to know, which model do we use?
Several. So there's not one size fits all, so to speak. So depending on what task or what capability an agent provides, an agent might use one or several models at the same time, whether it's large language models, small language models, or more specifically domain-specific models that we have trained, built, and are developing moving forward, because network and security specifically are very specific technologies and markets and areas, so you need to have domain-specific models that you integrate.
And look, when we started developing Platform One, we started at it with the thought process that models are commoditized. Now, when I say commoditized, I do not mean that they are undifferentiated. There is a differentiation between them, but there's no single model to rule them all. Each model has its own characteristics, its own strengths, and Platform One is built ground up to utilize various different models for their strengths, depending on what you as a user asks the AI to do.
And what the agent is going to do.
And what the agent wants to do. Now, one of the things you mentioned were the domain-specific models. And these are the models that are actually very specific to a specific domain, for example, networking, or even within networking, it could be very specific to, for example, the RF spectrum, for Wi-Fi, or it could be very specific to our own fabric technology. And these models are built by us and they are trained by us. And therefore, there's a huge amount of IP that exists in these models.
Exactly.
So Markus, we talked about models. So lots of models, we use the right model for the right use case. We have our own domain-specific models. And the good part about Platform One is that as there are new models that come out, there are probably 7 that came out while we were talking about it.
Absolutely.
So as new ones come out, we are able to utilize them without any what's the word I'm looking for? Without waiting for it for weeks and stuff. They can be made available very, very quickly.
Yeah, absolutely. That's the flexibility that we have built in the platform.
Exactly.
And our research team is continuously analyzing what's happening in the marketplace to ensure that we benchmark what we're using right now against what's available in the market, so we can quickly adopt and participate in the innovation that is happening in the marketplace.
And Markus, we are doing it so that our users don't have to do it. And instead of worrying about the latest model, you can actually pay attention to your business. So we do the hard work for you so you can do better outcomes for your own business. Second portion of the services layer, which is my favorite stuff, which is agents. So agent lifecycle management. We talked a lot about agents with MJ here. It's super cool. This is probably one of the best improvements that I have seen when it comes to AI, because it's easier to understand. It's very similar to how people work. So I think this is a great advancement. But it is a work and a half to really lifecycle manage it, and that all happens in this layer. So tell us about that.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, we have a lot of agents. As we mentioned before, we have lead agents that consolidate the interaction to a few agents for our users. But behind the scenes, we have an entire force of and set of core agents in an entire team, and all of those agents need to be lifecycle managed. There are continuous evolutions that are taking place, so their capabilities get enhanced, and we manage all of that. We scale it as well. As you engage and invoke different agents, you need to scale the entire system.
So I'm going to ask you a question here. We talked specifically about core agents.
Yes.
And then we said, like, hey, you as a user don't have to worry about core agents. You just deal with the lead agents because we take care of the core agents, and there's going to be many, many more of them. So this is where all of those core AI agents live.
And communicate. So we also facilitate the communication between those agents and how agents have access to the third layer, which is a tool registry. So which is critically important. Yeah.
Talking about tools.
Yes.
Models don't do anything on their own, as in terms of actions. It can tell you what's wrong with your network, but it won't be able to do anything about it. And in order for it to be able to do something, take an action and stuff, it requires tools. And this is where the tools live. So Markus, what are the different kind of tools? Tell us about it.
Yeah, it's about actions. Different types of tools include also access to different data sets through different mechanisms. So tools include the ability to access a REST API, SQL databases, but also different knowledge repositories. But it also integrates the ability to access domain-specific tools, like in the area of networking. How do you do packet capture? How do you do client monitoring and tracing? How you can invoke a network probe to identify whether you have a certain response time and quality and jitter, and all of those network and domain-specific tools. They are registered there, and they are again made available to one or more agents that leverage that technology.
While you were saying that, I had this visual, model or a vision of me on the weekend going into my garage and opening up my toolbox and just looking at all of those power tools and actually not knowing what to do with them. But that's really how these are, because these tools are the one that allow agents or models to do something. For example, if you want AI to go configure your network, it uses a configuration tool. It could be an API or a REST call.
Correct.
If you want it to go and open a ticket, it will use an integration tool to go and open up a ticket, either in our own service cloud or whatever you have, and so on and so forth. So there could be hundreds of thousands of tools out there. So how do we keep track of them?
That's the tools registry. So we're not only registering tools, but we also keep versions, how to access them, what credentials you need to use. And this becomes available, as I said, to one or more agents at the same time. So we only have to do all of those integrations once. And again, in the spirit of platform, becomes available everywhere.
And another part and I'm hyper fixated, not only just agents, but the agency of the agents. So we talked about that depending upon the permissions for the agent, it will have access to a certain number of tools, which then determines what it can and cannot do. So all of that happens in the tool registry as well. This is something that we are part of, what's happening in the industry. This is where things like MCP and A2A are coming up, and as a consensus, and if a consensus builds in the industry, you can be rest assured that we'll be at the forefront of that.
Absolutely.
But this is great tech that we have built into Platform One from day one. So summarizing, Markus, we talked about the services layer. We talked about 3 portions of the services layer. We're kind of going in threes. The first part is models. Thing to remember, there's no one model to rule them all. We can use any of them, all of them, and they're very specific to their strengths. So we make sure of that. Second one, we talked about agents.
My
favorite. How could you forget that? My favorite stuff.
Agent lifecycle.
Agent lifecycle. So all of that cool stuff that is happening in the agent world, the core agents, multitudes of them, constantly evolving, constantly getting better and stuff. All of that lifecycle management happen in services layer. And the last and not the least are the tools and the tool registries that allow agents or AI or models to actually do something useful and actually cause an effect. For example, configuring your network, changing something in there, opening a ticket, so on and so forth. All right. So that is services layer for you. When we come back, we're going to talk about where it all comes together,
Yeah.
which is the orchestration layer.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, we will go with 3 layers there as well.
All right,
Yeah.
3. Okay,
Yes.
we are working in 3s today. We will be back with orchestration layer. All right, welcome back. Welcome back. We're talking about all things AI as they relate to Platform One, and then a few things about the industry. Markus, we are deep into the core of AI Core. We talked about the 2 layers for it. What was the data layer as well as the services layer? And now we're going to talk about the orchestration side, because in the end, you got to orchestrate all of these things. So you asked us to stick to the 3s. So what are the 3 things that orchestration layer does?
Again, we have 3 layers within the orchestration layer. It starts really with AI, safety, guardrails, and accuracy, how we manage that.
Actually, I'm going to stop you there, because that was the first question that I was going to ask, because that's what everybody asks me. So I'm going to make you feel that pain for that, is that how do we make sure, especially when we said there are so many models that we use, so how do we guard against the hallucinations as well as the accuracy problems in that model? Because that's something that we do get asked every time, and we do have some really unique ways to deal with it, which differentiates Platform One than any off-the-shelf AI that you can actually use. So let's dig deeper into that first.
Let's double click on this. Certainly there's the space of safety and guardrails, where we integrate technology partners specifically. I don't think that anybody can build this by themselves. So we have alliances.
Big shout out to our partners at Microsoft, and they are going to be there at Connect with us, and we'll talk a lot more about it with them as well. So, but they are not the only partners. We have a bunch of other partners.
They're not the only partner, but they are a key partner, especially around safety and how you control hallucinations, and how are you putting guardrails in place to control the output, but also provide AI safety, which really is centered around how do you protect against AI-specific attacks that you have to keep in mind, like prompt injection and others. That is captured at that layer, but a lot of the conversations out there are focused just on that. But as you mentioned as well, accuracy is super important, because accuracy drives trust, drives adoption. And here specifically, as we have built out our system, for example, for unstructured data content, with our RAG system, we have specific quality controls in place that allow us on a continuous basis to ensure that accuracy meets our expectation and are going to meet your expectations as well.
And you know, when it comes to accuracy, one of the things is there's no such thing as 100% accurate. There's no AI that is 100% accurate. There's no human, there's no subject matter expert that is 100% accurate. Actually, I was reading this report, and I forget who generated that report, but it was a very broad-based report. And what they did was that they took various different use cases and measured the accuracy of the subject matter experts in that space. It was very interesting from an operations, think like it was broadly operations point of view, which is where network operations, network management, security management would fit as well. They realized that the accuracy actually goes anywhere from 85% to 95%. And I was really interested about that, because then I dug into it. Why the variance? Now, you would expect that the variance would be at the skill level of the people, but surprisingly, the variance was for the same operator, depending on what time of the day they had to do that function, which is very interesting.
That's super interesting.
Right? So interestingly enough, like maybe, and this part I'm making it up, but maybe on Monday morning, fresh with like a cup of coffee, the accuracy is 95%. Friday evening, just before the drinks, you know, after a long lunch, perhaps it is down to 85%. But the beauty of AI and the AI agents is that whatever its accuracy is, that accuracy is stable. It is the same amount of accurate every time, every single time it runs. So it's a big topic, but when it comes to accuracy of the models and AI as a whole, you have to think about the accuracy for a specific use case compared to a subject matter expert across a period of time. This is a big topic. At some point in time, we will dive deeper into it.
That by itself is an entire season, not only just an episode.
So I think Markus is promising that we'll come back with a lot more detail on accuracy. Okay, so the first part, guardrails, accuracy, safeguarding from hallucinations and stuff.
Yeah.
What is the second part or second segment, if you would, of the orchestration layer?
The second one is really how you orchestrate the agent communication itself. So how do you make sure that not only agents can communicate, but how they communicate, and how do you adapt to different use cases, scenarios, and jobs to be done, which result in different communication patterns that you need to orchestrate and facilitate.
So Markus, in the industry, and this is where we kind of deviate from Platform One a little bit and talk about the industry as well. In industry, there is a big debate going on that when it comes to agent-to-agent communication, which will also include agent-to-tools communication, if you would, there are two big kind of school of thoughts. One is that it should be centralized, which means that there is a planner agent which plans and orchestrates everything, and the rest of the agents, they just do whatever the planner agent is saying. And the other school of thought says that, look, it is going to be a lot more decentralized, and it's really going to be a communication amongst peers. And this is a big debate in the industry. So which side of the divide we at Extreme Networks fall?
Yeah, we are clearly in the middle. We take both into account, because depending on what job needs to be done, you might be better off with more of a hierarchical and very sequential type of communication pattern between agents and agentic systems, or you are better off with a more collaborative approach to it.
And let's actually take an example of that, because we talked about lead agents and core agents, which is obviously and very clearly an example of a centralized orchestration where the lead agent creates these teams, pulls in all of these core agents, and actually does something on your behalf. But we actually didn't talk about, which maybe I'll mention it here, is that across those few lead agents that exist, we also allow those lead agents to participate in a collaborative environment and do something even more complex for you, which is very much a use case of peer-to-peer style communication.
Absolutely,
so Markus, what you're saying is that we actually are not part of this fight because we allow both of these communication methodologies between agents. This is something that I know we had to build ground up. We have some patented technology around this.
Absolutely.
Because we really do believe that as the AI use cases evolve over time, as you, the user, figure out how you want to use them, what use cases do you want to apply them at, and what is the value that you want to get out of these AI systems, we are going to have to support both of these communication and orchestration methodologies.
At the same time, and depending on what needs to be done, we decide that on the fly. And just to put a finer nuance and a finer point on it, even core agents might collaborate directly depending on the use case. So it's even hybrid within the same lead core agent relationship as well.
Now we're just going too far down. So
now we're getting too geeky. Bring it back.
So we'll come back up. But look, this is an exciting world. But rest assured, as a user of Platform One, we take care of all of these so that you can focus on your job and you can focus on your business. But coming back to the orchestration layer. So we talked about, orchestrating all of those agents. We talked about, taking care of hallucinations and AI safety and accuracy and stuff. But in the end, all of this AI stuff runs on a cloud environment. And we have a global cloud environment. It's not just one data center somewhere where everything runs. Our footprint is global. It is in most of the countries out there, most of the regions out there. So how does this entire AI stuff map onto our physical global cloud infrastructure?
The AI stuff is still software in our services that need to be orchestrated. And we need to, again, bring it back to the initial discussion that we had around data governance that applies to all AI services as well. So we need to make sure that as we orchestrate those services, agents, tools, etc., we also take the governance requirements into account, so we can orchestrate that at a geo, at a regional level, and even bring it down to the edge, which is another unique offering that we have within
And I think that's an important point, because in our Extreme Cloud world, our customers are very used to us providing data residency, data governance, and data localization capabilities. And that is really important to a lot of our customers, especially in Europe and in Asia Pac. Now, when you talk about the AI world, then that residency and governance and localization has to be kept at the data layer, but has to be applied on the AI services layer as well.
Exactly.
Said in another way, if you are a customer sitting in Germany, and big shout out to our German team, we have a lot of customers sitting out in Germany, you might want not only just your data, but you might want all of the AI services, for example, models and stuff, to be resident within Europe as well. And that is the big, massive differentiation that Extreme provides to its customers because of our global cloud footprint and global cloud infrastructure. We can actually not only support you wherever you are, but we can support your data localization, AI services localization, residency, and governance policies as well. So Markus, orchestration, 3 things that we talked about.
Yeah.
What was the first one?
AI safety, accuracy, and guardrails, critically important.
Number 2?
Agent communication, adaptive or orchestration of those communication patterns.
Absolutely. And then number 3?
Orchestration of AI services.
Across our global infrastructure of cloud. So look, we kind of went through all of AI Core here. And just to summarize, there's a lot more to talk about when it comes to AI Core, but I think this is the right level at this point in time. 3 big layers in AI Core, starting from data, because everything is related to data. If you don't have the right data, if you can't govern the data, if you cannot build the richness and the fidelity in the data, then none of your AI services are going to matter at all. And then on top of that are the AI services where there's no one model to rule them all. There are multiple models, and these models communicate a different way and actually use tools to do something useful. And in the end, you have to orchestrate all of that, not only the models in terms of safety, in terms of accuracy, but actually orchestrating it across a global cloud infrastructure. Look, AI Core is an integral part of Platform One. And the way we have built it is that once an application is running on top of Platform One, once a service is running on Platform One, once a customer is connected to Platform One, all AI services, all AI technologies and capabilities are available to you no matter how you enter the Platform One world, which is a massive differentiation. So, Markus, I want to congratulate you and the rest of your team for building something that is uniquely differentiated. And I am excited to see what our customers and our users, that is you, are going to do when you get your hands on Platform One and when you have all of these AI capabilities in front of you. We will probably come back and talk about all of the fancy use cases that our users will do. Until then, thank you so much, and we'll talk again.